these first ones, they were each worth 3 points, 1 for your work, 1 for your answer, and 1 for your graph. So for this first one, you should have combined like terms. Some of you did that, some of you started moving things. Either or was fine, as long as you did it correctly. And then got rid of the 2 by adding it to the other side. We have -1, if we're reading it left to right. -1 is greater than or equal to b, or read it backwards to graph it. B is less than or equal to -1. Some of you were getting tripped up on which direction it goes. Because you wrote it like this, so you graphed it to the right, but it should have been graphed to the left. So always either read it backwards if you don't want to change it, or just change it. So that would be closed to the left. Questions on that one? The second one you needed to distribute. So -12a minus 24 is less than or equal to -84. Get rid of your 24 by adding. When you got to here, some of you forgot the -60, which changed your answer. And then some of you also forgot to change your sign when you were dividing by a negative. So this should be a is greater than or equal to 5. Some of you got -5, but that should have told you something was wrong. As these number lines are filled in, if you don't see your number, something's probably wrong. So that would be closed going to the right. Questions on that one? Number 3, you have to distribute twice. -16 is greater than or equal to 4n minus 24 plus 6n plus 18. Combine your like terms on the same side. Do exactly what it says, not the opposite. So -16 is greater than or equal to 10n minus 6. And then get rid of 6. So add 6 to both sides. And then you would be dividing both sides by 10, not -10. That threw some of us off. So we have -1 is greater than or equal to n, or n is less than or equal to -1. So again, close circle at -1 going to the left. Questions on that one? And then number 4, you had variables and constants on both sides. So you needed to move one of the variables to the other side and one of the constants to the other side. A lot of you moved this v over by subtracting and added 12. To get 6 is greater than or equal to v, or v is less than or equal to 6. So that would be closed to the left. It was coincidence that all of these were closed circles, and 3 out of 4 of these were shaded to the left. That may or may not happen again on the test, so don't think it's like a pattern. Questions on any of those? For the most part, we did fine here, just minor mistakes or missing graphs, things like that. 4.2 was probably our most problematic, are you guys and other classes. Just remembering which one you need to solve which way. So if it's condensed, that should be an and, where you do everything together, trying to get the A in the middle by itself. So you should be dividing by 6. Some of you divided by -6, which we should not have been doing. Some of you solved the two separately, which was fine, but your final answer still needs to be condensed. And then your graph should have your line segment where it's closed at -1, open at 5. Some of you put the arrows, which was fine if you also did this part. If you only did the arrows but didn't show where they overlap, you kind of missed the whole point of the graph. Yes? No. So the arrows are not necessary, the line segment is. So you can have all 3 or just the line segment. But you need the line segment. Yes? So you did and separated it, just leave it as condensed. Because if you give me options, I'm going to choose the wrong one. Right? Other questions on that one? Okay. For 6, 7, and 8, those were all or inequalities. Again, that was coincidence. That could happen, that could not. It depends. You needed to solve them separately. So add 3 on one, subtract 3 on the other. We have 4x is less than 0, and -2x is less than -4. Some of you get to 4x is less than 0 and stop, but keep going. It can be solved. So x is less than 0 is one of our answers. Divide both sides by -2 over here. Your sign changes direction. Make sure you have an or in between your final answers. Some of you were forgetting that. And then this would be an open circle at 0 going to the left, and an open circle at 2 going to the right. Our or inequalities should not graph together. If they do, something's off. Questions on that one? So 5 was worth 3 points. Correctly doing your graph, your final answer, and your work. 6 through 8 are all worth 4 points. The work for both sides, your final answer, and your graph. Number 7. Again, solve both sides. Add 5. Subtract 6. We have -b is less than 3, and 4b is less than or equal to -20. Some of you, when you brought down the 3, the b is less than 3, didn't bring down the negative, so that changed your entire problem. So we would be dividing by -1 over here and by 4 on the right. Your sign would change directions. So b is greater than -3, or b is less than or equal to -5. So you would have a closed circle at -5 going to the left, and an open circle at -3 going to the right. Questions on that one? Yeah.
They'll always go opposite ways.
For or, yes. And then 8, I'm going to rewrite down here. If you don't have enough space, please grab extra paper, write on the back, tell me it's on the back, whatever works. As we were solving this, some of us just forgot some of the parts or didn't bring down some of the parts. So we were solving and didn't bring down the -5 on one side, so it threw off everything, or didn't bring down the -2 on one side, which again threw off everything. So just be careful there. We can do this all simultaneously. Subtract 2k and then add 5. Subtract 4k and then add 2. negative 5k is less than or equal to 0. And negative 2k is greater than or equal to 8. Divide everything, and both inequalities are going to change signs because you're dividing by negatives. We have k is now greater than or equal to 0, and k is less than or equal to negative 4. So both of these would be closed. One at negative 4 going to the left, and one at 0 going to the right. What questions do we have on that one? All right, when you're finished writing that down or checking that over, go ahead and flip to the next page. Each of these graphs were worth 3 points. Did you graph the line correctly, the slope and y-intercept, as 1 point? Is the type of line correct, dashed versus solid? Did you shade in the right area? So for number 9, this should have been a solid line, shaded above. And if you don't remember which way is above, below, greater than or equal to is always above. Look at your y-intercept. Draw up and down arrows. Up would be above. Draw or shade in that area. You can also use your calculator steps, which are on the whiteboard over here. 10 was also a solid line shaded above. It just looks different because the slope was negative. Do we have questions on either of those? $11 should have been a dashed line shaded above. 12 was also a dashed line shaded above. Again, it was coincidence that these were all shaded above, that 2 were solid and 2 were dashed. It just depends on the problems. Questions on any of those? And then for the very last section, these were each worth 5 points. Did you graph the lines correctly, the slope and the y-intercept, for both? Are the type of lines correct for both, dashed or solid? And then is the overlapping shaded area correct? So if I couldn't tell which one was overlapping on the test, make that more clear. Highlight it. Color it in darker, color it a different color, something. Right, so one of your lines was dashed, the second one. The other one was solid. And then as you were shading, we would have been shading up here for this one. And down here for this one. And they overlap right there. For 14, some of you got this, some of you didn't. This should have been a vertical line, so if you did horizontal, you confused your x and y's. So vertical line, also dashed. Some of you shaded wrong. So think about numbers that would be less than 2, that should help you. Would -5, -3, 1 be less than 2? Yes. 3, 4, and 5 would not be less than 2, so don't shade on that side. And then your other one should have been solid, so this was the overlapping. If your slope or y-intercept were incorrect, which caused your shading to be off, you just got minor points taken off for that. Questions on 13 or 14? For 15, most of us saw that these were parallel lines. Most of us did the correct shading, but one of them should have been dashed, the other solid, with the overlapping in between them, not outside of them. And then 16, this one was dashed. The 5x plus 3 was solid, and this should have been your overlapping. What? Is that what I wrote? Can I see it? Oh, point PTS points. That was my bad. I was grading really late over the weekend. I'm sure that my usual illegible handwriting just became worse. So there's that. Any other questions? Anything specific, in general, we want to ask before you guys take your test? Okay. If not, go ahead and clear off your desks. Put your phones in a calculator pocket, not on your person. Grab a calculator.